The United Nations Migration Agency is reporting a 64% increase in migration from the Horn of Africa to Gulf countries through Yemen in the past year. The International Organization for Migration says that this is worrying, and it's a worrying trend as many migrants remain unaware of the perils of the journey, including the war in Yemen. More women and children have been recorded making the crossing as opposed to past reports of men taking on the journey in search for better opportunities. Some of the underlying factors driving numbers are said to be climate change and conflict. Officials have launched an $84 million appeal to support more than 1 million migrants passing through the route. We are now joined by Yvonne Ndege, Regional Communication Officer and spokesperson of the IOM Regional Office for East and Horn of Africa, joining us from Cape Town. Yvonne, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. Yvonne, the big question, why is the rise in the number of women and children migrating from the Horn of Africa to Gulf countries worrying?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. IOM, the International Organization for Migration, and the partners involved in the launch of the Regional Migrant Response Plan for the Horn of Africa and Yemen are worried about the human suffering that we see on this route that runs from the Horn of Africa to the Gulf nations, across the Gulf of Aden. We see young people, we see women, we see children facing and taking tremendous risk when they undertake these journeys. Many of them leave villages in Ethiopia, in Somalia, but other parts of the Horn of Africa too. They spend weeks, sometimes months in the desert, facing very extreme conditions, having to walk across mountains, waterbeds, and in those journeys, they often become dehydrated. Some unfortunately die from starvation and hunger. They're also exposed to the risk of trafficking and smuggling. They become the targets of these people. And what we are seeing and what is worrying us is the increasing level of suffering that we're seeing. Every so often, there are reports, and IOM sees with its partners, migrants dying while trying to cross the Gulf of Aden. We regularly have shipwrecks and boats capsizing, many with women on, and many with children. The number of those being targeted, as I say, by traffickers and smugglers is also quite high and quite serious. And we see the desperation and the human suffering that many are experiencing. So the launch of this appeal is critical to addressing the humanitarian emergency, the humanitarian needs, but also the drivers of this displacement. You touched on it a little bit in your intro, the situation, the socioeconomic situation facing many of these migrants is serious. Many are leaving their homelands and their towns and their villages because of the socioeconomic situation they're facing. The impact of the coronavirus pandemic is also not over. The ramifications of the pandemic are still being felt. There's also conflict and instability, and also increasingly we're seeing climate change become a major driver of the increasing number of migrants. As you know, that there is an ongoing and very serious drought happening in the region, which is driving thousands of people from their homes, and they are taking tremendous risks.
All right, Yvonne, you've painted a gloomy and heart-wrenching picture of the situation. My question to you now is, how are governments and partners such as yourself dealing with this worrisome situation?
Well, the launch of the Regional Migrant Response Plan by IOM and its partners that include organizations like Save the Children, the Danish Refugee Council, and other UN agencies is the mechanism and the platform for trying to address the situation. In the immediate is to address the humanitarian suffering that I spoke about. It's something I've witnessed personally whilst traveling some of these routes and seeing what the migrants actually go through. And I mentioned some of the issues and the dangers they face, but also looking at the drivers back home, what is actually causing young people, women, children, young men to leave their home. And it's the socioeconomic situation, as I said, the security situation in some cases, the political situation in some cases, and climate change. So the Regional Migrant Response Plan for the Horn of Africa and Yemen is the way in which IOM, the International Organization for Migration, and its partners are looking to address these issues, the immediate humanitarian issue, but also increasing the rights, okay, of these migrant groups. This is also key, that migrants be treated fairly, that migrants be given refuge when they need it, that they have the same rights as people in the countries of destination, where they are trying to reach or improved rights. And of course, critically for IOM and its partners, ensuring that their human rights are protected. We see as a result of the irregular circumstances by which many of these migrants end up traveling and leaving home, they expose themselves to tremendous risk, including not having access to legal representation. We know of thousands who end up detained on the route, in particular in Yemen. Many of the migrants cannot reach the countries of destination or the Gulf countries or the places they want to get through without going through Yemen. And we see lots of human rights abuses happening there. And so the migrant response plan for the region, the Horn of Africa and Yemen, is the way in which we intend to address these issues, working with other UN agencies, as I say, with international NGOs, and critically, the governments who are most impacted in the region.